What's up guys, welcome back. My name is Warren. I am a banker here in London and property investor across the UK. My goal is to have all of my living costs covered by income through property. I want to live freely in the next 5 years. So my goal is to get to £3,000 per month from property in the next 5 years. If you're on that vibe, you want to live freely and independently too through investments, give me that subscribe, drop a like and follow my content because that's what I'm all about. I want to go on this journey together. So guys, 2 videos in the top 10 most popular videos on this channel out of the 100 plus I've done are on wealth inequality across the races in the UK and also home ownership by all of the races in the UK. So today we're going to narrow the focus even more. We're talking about UK black home ownership. What are the stats like? How do we fix where it's currently at right now in the UK? And you know me guys, I love stats. So let's go straight to the numbers on gov.uk, our UK government official data. For the black community, as we can see here from these graphs, black home ownership is an average of 32% compared to a national average of 63%. So what we're saying, basically across all of the other races in the UK, the average is 63%. Across the black community in the UK, home ownership is an average of 32%, just 1 in 3 compared to 2/3 across the other communities in the UK. Now let's start guys with why this is important. Why is it important to talk about UK black home ownership? Now you know me, I'm all about living independently, living freely through wealth, through investing in assets. But even if you have a job, which is absolutely fine, I have a job right now. When we talk about wealth, long-term wealth as a community, that really comes with owning assets. You're not going to get wealthy most of the time through a job, unless you're like, you know, an entertainer, a singer, an athlete getting paid hundreds of millions of pounds over your lifetime, a niche percent of the global population. Most people like you and me, average people on the average UK wage, are not going to become wealthy through our jobs. And the stats back this up guys. According to the Office for National Statistics, property behind pensions is the second largest source of wealth in the UK. So basically, if you don't have property, you're playing yourself when it comes to having long-term wealth that you can live off throughout your lifetime in your later years and pass on to your kids once you're gone. That's the most important thing about this for me. It's about intergenerational wealth. That is why black home ownership is something that we need to talk about in the UK. 32% is too low. And guys, you're going to see from this video that it's not that hard to fix this. So stick around to the end. So first of all, guys, for context, I think we need to understand why home ownership in the black UK community is so low. This article in The Guardian that talks about a housing crisis and why it's so much worse for black families is useful. And they touch on a few points. The first is that their parents weren't able to help them. We're talking about young black individuals trying to get onto the property ladder in the UK. The difference between our community and others is that a lot of our parents, 2/3 to be specific, don't own property. And the great thing about property is that it goes up in value over time. So I have multiple properties now. By the time my kids are 20 and looking to get onto the property ladder, those properties that I have now would have gone up in value by hundreds of thousands of pounds. What can I do then? I can take out equity and give that money to my kids. I can give them 20, 30, 100 grand to buy their own properties when their time comes. I know properties will probably be like £1 million by then, but hopefully my properties would have gone up in line with inflation and hopefully help them buy their £1 million 1-bed studios. Another key point is that most ethnic minorities live in cities. So most of the black community in the UK live in large cities. We're concentrated in places like London, Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham. We don't tend to be found in places like Cornwall or the Isle of Wight or Dorchester. And the thing about cities is that generally speaking, property in the middle of cities tends to be more expensive than properties in regional parts of the UK. And that applies to most countries. So not only do we not have the benefit of having parents with equity and money that can be passed down to us to help us to buy our properties when our time comes, but where we're buying is more expensive than the majority of other properties in other regions of the UK. And then 2 other factors that we need to quickly look at are Income. So when it comes to the Black UK community, our incomes compared to the rest is somewhere in the middle. As a community, we tend to be in average, medium paying jobs. And as we'll come on to, it's more than possible to acquire property and acquire long-term wealth, even if you're in a medium or even a low paying job. And another key factor is the circumstances under which the Caribbean community came to the UK in the first place. We came mainly in the 60s as part of the Windrush. If you want to know more about that, go Google it. But basically, after the World War, the infrastructure of England was depleted, and so was the workforce. A lot of men died in the war, so they invited people from the Caribbean mainly to come into the UK and replenish the workforce. So my granddad, for example, he came as a train driver and a bus driver. My grandma came as a nurse. Problem was though, when they came, they were shut out of the banking system. A lot of banks, believe it or not, did not give them access to accounts, to credit, and that is key. As a banker myself who's worked in credit risk, if you want to buy property and acquire wealth, a huge part of that, a really vital part of that, is access to credit. I'm talking about mortgages. If you're shut out of a banking system, and imagine how much cheaper houses were in the 1960s. Imagine if, as a whole, the Caribbean community had access to banks and they all bought houses in the 60s. Right now, you would have a percentage of Caribbeans and the Black community with houses much higher than 32%. And the wealth and the rise in value of those houses from the 1960s to now would be massive. So that was a key part that often goes under discussed and under acknowledged. But let's move on from that and talk about what strategies can we use to increase Black UK home ownership. And by the way, these strategies apply to everybody, not just Black people. If you're Asian, if you're white, Arab, Jew, it applies to everyone. But for the purposes of this video, I'm talking specifically to my community, okay? So first of all is to look outside of where you live. That is my strategy, guys. I live in London. I live in a city, as we saw in that Guardian article. Prices of properties in London are peak. I can't afford it, yeah? I couldn't have afforded to buy the multiple properties that I have today in London. You need to go outside of your city. Now, I saw a stat the other day, roughly around 90% of investment properties in any given region of the UK are owned by people in that same region. So it's a very small minority of people that invest outside of where they live. If you invest outside of where you live, where it's cheaper, where growth is happening a lot faster, you're part of a very niche but significantly clever and wise group of people, because you're accessing properties that are cheaper than where you live, significantly cheaper in my case, and that are growing a lot faster. And there's relatively little competition, because don't forget, I'm on a London wage buying in the northwest, where the average wage up there is a lot lower than London. So I can afford more, okay? And I can compete a lot harder, and people can't really compete with me. So guys, look outside of where you live. Secondly, join together. Black people, join together. Practice community group economics to increase UK Black home ownership. Now, of course, you've got to trust the person you're invested with, and that applies to anything in life. You can't join up in a financial situation with someone you don't know or that you don't trust. But if you do, whether it's your partner, family member, a friend, business partner, put your money together, guys, and go invest up north or some other region of the UK where it's cheaper, because two are better than one. It says in the Bible, you're more effective, you're stronger, you can buy more, you can invest quicker, you can grow quicker if you join forces, if you combine your money, have the necessary legal agreements in place to protect you if anything goes wrong or if you ever disagree on what you want to do. But there's power, guys, joining forces economically. It's really, really important, and it's really key. So consider it. Next up, guys, is to use brokers. A really simple one, but there are a lot of people out there with credit scores or credit histories that aren't necessarily great. And you might think, hey, there's no way I can get a mortgage. I'm in default on this debt. I've had this judgment against me. I will never get a mortgage. So I won't even bother looking at that. You're wrong, guys. There are brokers out there who can get most people a mortgage. Yes, you might have to pay a higher rate, but use a broker. It's key, guys. I use one all the time. And then lastly, guys, a real big hack, and we're going back to the Guardian article that we looked at earlier on. We can see in this article that black households are far more likely to live in social housing than other ethnicities. Yes, that is a fact. However, that comes with an advantage. The right to buy government scheme gives people in social housing the right to buy their property with a maximum discount up to £87,200 in England, except in London, where the maximum is £116,200. Guys, this is a freebie. This is a gimme from the government. If you've been living in a council house or a social housing accommodation like I did growing up, why in the world would you not take up the government on this scheme, on this offer, to get up to £116,000 off the value of a house that you've been living in anyway? Buy it, you've got automatic equity in the house from day one, and you can own that and give that to your children. I mean, it is a no-brainer, guys, and I don't know why more people do not promote this scheme to the hills and back. So guys, that is my take on how to improve black UK home ownership. As I said, it applies to a lot of other races, other people, whoever you are, it applies to you, but some specific practical strategies and tips and ways to increase home ownership, increase wealth, and live free. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Like and subscribe and comment for the algorithm. It really helps my channel grow. Good to see you guys. I'll see you next week. And the stats back this up, guys. According to the National Office of Statistics, National Statistics Office, the National Office. And the stats back this up. And the stats back this up, guys. According to the Office for National Statistics,